Ma'at. That means I'm bringing you truth. I want to welcome you to Professor and Priestess. This is episode 4 of our live stream series. I am Aust NeferKa, and my lovely co-host is Mama Regina Jennings. And before I go any further, I want to ask my beloved elder if I have permission to speak.
Absolutely.
Give thanks. So, welcome everyone who is here with us live. If you're watching the replay or the raw play, as we like to say, thank you, welcome. And today, our episode is all about healing takes courage. And we're going to go deep into how really just all levels of healing, multidimensional healing, is fundamental to us manifesting freedom. So our series for or our this season, our episodes are all going to be focused on the 11 pillars of Tehuti Ma'at, which are building on the 10-point platform of the Black Panther Party. Mama Regina is an original Panther. She, excuse me, is also an author, a mother, and wisdom keeper in her own right. So I would love for you to introduce yourself for those who may not have watched previous episodes. And also you can tap into Mama Regina's website for more information to order her books. So can you introduce yourself, please, Mama Regina?
Absolutely. I'm a Black nationalist freedom fighter who learned how to love Black people, even in our insanity, and to work towards the betterment of our people because we've been at war. I had not realized that we were at war until I joined the Black Panther Party for self-defense around 1967, a year after it was incorporated by Huey P. Newton and Bobby G. Seale. So from that experience, it laid the foundation for everything that I've done since that time. So I'm delighted to be here with Sister Neff. It was a wonderful invitation for her to give to me. I'm here again because I really want to give everything that I have to her and to everybody else who's listening and to every Black person that I meet. It doesn't matter the age. In fact, I'm going to show you later in the show a book that somebody sent to me. And the book it's a children's book. And the book is entitled, My Grandparents Were Members of the Black Panther Party. It is stunning, stunning. So, because I've been allowed to live as long as I have, and I'm still on earth with you, keeping whatever little bit of knowledge or whatever little bit of wisdom or whatever little bit of history that I have to myself is insane. That's a part of insanity. And since even though I am an outstanding teacher, professor, and an author, but these academic institutions won't keep me because they don't want a Panther teaching about the Black Panther Party for self-defense. They would rather have book-learned people teach about the Black Panther Party for self-defense. So, opportunities like this, where I can share what I know, are priceless to me because indeed I should be in a classroom. And this, in fact, is a classroom. So I'm not really upset anymore with the white racist pig dogs who have stopped my career. And by the way, I'll tell you about this too, even later in the show now. The sisters that I met on Sunday that I hadn't seen in 20 and 25 years, those who were professors like me, went the distance and got the PhD. They're not kept in universities either. So this is not just a Regina Jennings issue. All right. There is indeed a movement to make sure that we do not reach the masses of the people because they know that we love them and we know that we see through the machinations of what is going on in this country, and that we could hip young people to how to steer, navigate, empower, and overcome the tyranny that many of us live under.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you said that, Mama Regina, because it's very important for people to recognize the importance, one, the importance of you and your existence, but the transmission that you're providing of experience, information, wisdom, because there's a huge effort right now to constantly push people towards youth and just fetishizing youth and not valuing eldership, and really to stray away from our culture, our roots as people of African descent, right? And the cyclical nature of our orientation to our ancestry, to our elders, and that connection is so significant. And then of course, when we're looking at these intellectual gas chambers as our warrior scholar ancestors who put in work and went to battle with academia and the institutional world around our culture, our story, and what the truth is. You know, and I'm speaking of Baba John Hendrik Clark, Dr. Yosef Ben-Jochannan, and even my beloved elder who is still with us, Mama Dr. Joy Hardiman. So all I'm talking about, Asa G. Hilliard, all of these great beloved warrior scholars who put in all this work, wrote all these books, created institutions, ASCAC, the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations. All of that work was very significant, but obviously it was a huge threat to the establishment. And they're not going to give us what we need for our freedom. And we need to be clear on that. And for those who are not aware that we're in a state of warfare, this conversation is above your pay grade. I'll just say that, because to be honest with you, I'm clear and I'm actually fine with the fact that this is not for everyone. It's not for anyone. It's for everyone, but it's not for anyone. This is for warrior spirits who are here, who are serious about healing themselves and contributing to the restoration and the resurrection of African people. And if if it's not for you, it's just not for you, right? If you're not here, you're not about that life, it's all good. But I didn't introduce myself for those who may be here and who do not know me. I am Aust NeferKa. I'm the mother of Tehuti Ma'at. We are here to serve as a counter current to the mainstream. As Mama Regina said, they do not provide mainstream platforms for the things that I'm like mirroring over here trying to fix that. They do not provide us with what we need. So we have to create the spaces and we have to create the platforms that we need. And it's not about quantity, it's about quality. And that's what we focus on here. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. We have different live stream series that we do, talk shows, but also vlogs and informational, educational videos. It's very holistic, but really we focus on the continuation and completion of the African world revolution. So I want to also say, as a spiritual warrior, as a sower of seeds that sprout, I am a farmer. As a revolutionary, I really carry the mantle of spiritual warriorship very seriously, especially as a high priestess of ancient wisdom, of cosmic wisdom. It's very, very important for us to recognize that the warfare is interdimensional, and the highest ground that we can take is the spiritual. And that's just using terms that have been given to us. When I say spiritual, I put an emphasis on the ritual, because there's an aspect of our nature that is scientific, right? Because when we talk about ancient science, when we talk about ancient wisdom, right? Because I'm also a sacred wisdom keeper of Kemetic sacred science. We're talking about sacred sciences. And I know it's important for us to put that respect on that, because spirituality is being thrown around very loosely. We're not talking about religion. We're not talking about belief. We're talking about the overstanding of how everything is interconnected and how there's actually many different vantage points. There's understanding, there's comprehension, there's center standing, there's inner standing, right? And this is an aspect of our tradition that is still carried on through many African traditions that exist today all across the continent. Most notably, the Dogon in Mali carried this tradition, and even in Dr. Kaba Kamini's book, Spirituality Before Religion, he also touches on that as well. And Mama Dr. Marimba Ani also touches on this as well. So for people who are not as familiar with some of the language around it, I do think I like to honor and put respect on where my lineage comes from, as far as my ideology, as far as my political and my worldview. So I'm just putting that out there just to give people more context, because I also like people to be able to expand beyond our dialogue and conversation. So I love that we always share raw sources or resources and allow people to just go deeper into the conversation. I also want to shout out Brother Wale. If you are here with us live, please tune in on the chat. You can share questions, comments. Glad to have you again. Thank you for showing up. And anyone else who's present, feel free to tune in the chat, and we'll try to pay attention to what's in there and acknowledge it throughout the stream. Okay. So, oh, there we go. Brother Jadorian in the house. Honor and respect. Welcome, bro. Glad to have you. All right. So, Mama Regina, I want to start because for people who haven't watched the previous episodes, as I said, revolution is the only solution is the theme. We first started off our introduction episode talking about how really Tehuti Ma'at is building on the foundation that you were intimately involved in during your youth as a member of the Black Panther Party, and how we are really revolving that, right? We talked a lot about going from evolution to revolution, and that being key, right? Because we really have to begin with our conceptualizing. And as Huey P. Newton, who was one of the co-founders of the Black Panther Party, defined power. Power is the ability to define phenomenon and make it act in a desired manner. So our definition is very, very significant, very important. So I think it's very important for us to always honor the continuum that we're in and the shoulders that we stand on. And that's why I love having you here, because I always want to make sure to respect those who have put in work. And I want to first ask you if there was any aspect of healing that you can share with us, because a lot of us have a very filtered knowledge of the Black Panther Party. You know, there are some really great documentaries for sure, but even still, it is something, as you said, it's very censored. A lot of information being blocked. Even when we talked in the previous episodes, you talked about how they've literally censored the 10-point platform and minimized it, and they didn't put what's exactly in there. So can you tell us like what role healing played, or where or how healing may have or may not have been involved in the work as you were a part of it when you were involved in the Black Panther Party?
Okay. Well, first, I'd like to start with this, Sister Neff. This book here, Poetry in the Black Panther Party, From Ancestral Memory, Morphogenetic Fields to Hip Hop. The ancestral memory and the morphogenetic fields relate directly to the Dogon, which take up a part of a chapter, a later chapter in this work, because like what Neff does, I go back to ancient Kemet, because that is the source of writing. They had a netter and a netert of writing in ancient Kemet 10 to 15 or more thousand years ago. So what I did here is to compare the poetry that particularly Panther leaders like Huey Newton wrote poetry, Bobby Seale, he recited poetry. Okay, I actually thought some of the poems he recited were his, but they were other people's poems that he took on and just made them his. Okay, and it's not like he was trying to cover up that he didn't write the poem. We just assumed because he was always reciting a poem that it was his poem. Because you have to understand too that we were soldiers. So having poetry reading and stuff, that's not exactly what we all did, you know. We learned how to be warriors. So the aesthetics and the poetics weren't number one on the agenda, but they were there. Now, to answer specifically, your question about healing, how it might have been in the Black Panther Party or not in the Black Panther Party. I'm glad you put it that way because, see, we're talking about the 60s into the 70s. And I'll give you this example. Okay, we fed hungry children, but do you really think that we knew to read the ingredients in the products? Now, we didn't kill any of our children with the food, but we just did not know. This is what it means to be mature and to evolve through time because you can't know what you don't know. All right. For example, we fed our kids milk, cow's milk. Why would I don't drink cow's milk today? I didn't give my children cow's milk. Cow's milk is for cows. Now, as we were putting together the Breakfast for School Children program, which actually Bobby Seale organized and gave orders to implement, we were just very happy when we could get foods from the grocery stores in our community to feed our hungry children and their parents who came as well. Now, so the information then was limited. So we didn't know a lot of things that we later found out. And I'll even tell you this story because I was just with this good sister on Sunday. There was a sister in my unit. She got really into health, like in the late 60s and 70s. She was like, and we were like, we ain't supposed to eat no meat? What? Are you out of your mind? I'm going to eat I'm going to get me some chicken wings. Don't you want some? So, I mean, it was like there were people who were evolving during that time. And yeah, we kind of laughed at them and made fun of them. And, I mean, but they all knew we would, we all fooled around, the brothers and sisters. My point is that she was onto something that we just did not comprehend. I later comprehended it, but she was like a first to do so. So in fact, and in fact, I was still in the party. Well, I feel like I'm still in the Black Panther Party for self-defense, so it never changes. But my point is the party was still going on, and I listened to this sister, okay, and other sisters that were talking about healing modalities, because you can only imagine how much we needed them. I mean, we were constantly in a position of stress, just constantly. And we were so young that even after we had to exercise every day, which is a good thing. But we were so, I don't want to call us crazy, but I'm gonna call us crazy. We were so crazy. We would exercise and then smoke some cigarette. Yeah, well, that was something, wasn't it, when we had to climb down. And I don't even know how. That's what youth does. Okay, I didn't even feel the cigarettes. I was like, yeah, that was quite a workout. So, we concentrated on being fit because we were soldiers for Black people. And if we had to, jump from roof to roof, which some of us did, or, just crawl through small plate, we had to, the body knowledge was very important to us. At the same time, the stress level was through the roof. I mean, we literally, now, because we were all together and we really did love each other, I just love my brothers and sisters, I absolutely did, that would minimize some of the stress that we were under, but the stress was there. The stress was absolutely there. There was a time I will never forget. I haven't written about it yet, but I might one day. I'm out selling papers, and these pigs pull up in an unmarked car, just two, white fellows. And they said, hey, I have a nickname. All right. And they said, hey, nickname, And I was like, how do you say my name? Yeah. Yeah, we know about, because I had a Panther husband now. Come on. They mentioned him, and then they mentioned my mother in Philadelphia. See, I was an Oakland Panthers. I was in California. I was far away. And when they hit me with that, I'm trying to tell you, I absolutely stayed calm. I knew how to stay calm. I knew the law. I knew, I knew how to run if I needed to. And then they sped away. So what that did to me, okay, once I got back to the office, that stayed with me. It stayed with me now over what 60, 65, 70, 70, over 55 years or whatever it is. You know, those kinds of stressors do not go away. And I'm speaking from experience. Even though I attempted to dismiss it, and because we had so much to do, but they don't go away. They don't go away. And that's where I think your organization, or at least a part of your organization that deals with healing, is so significant. Because even like I said on Sunday, I was with my Panther sisters and Panther brothers, because in New York City, we got a street named after us. 122nd Street and 7th Avenue is now called the Black Panther Way. So that was in New York. That was Sunday. So a lot of us, came in from all over the country to celebrate the street naming. Now, during that, well, really kind of after that celebration, when we all got together, to talk and stuff, the healing came up. Okay. They didn't know Neff, but the healing came up because we were all recognizing and acknowledging that we had to heal. Some people didn't know how. Many of us did, you know. But the idea of healing was very much on my mind just Sunday. Now this is Tuesday, and we spent a good amount of time talking about it, especially, Neff, you're going to appreciate this, especially the sisters. Now, the brothers were there, but, they're men. We sisters were talking about the various ways one can heal. One of my sisters does yoga. She does exercise. She is a vegetarian. We were telling our stories, right? But the brothers were there, and the brothers were listening. But we know how, men are, our brothers, our Black men. But I thought about that later, how they didn't have much to say, but I'm glad that they were there. Okay. So and they didn't interrupt us either. All right. So the notion of healing, all of us feel it, even those that are, let's say, in a specialty organization like the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. But we represent Black people, and it is no question that our entire nation of Black people need to be healed. Why? Because those on the continent were absolutely colonized by white racist pigs. And those of us in the Americas and outside of the Americans who are Black, we were enslaved. So that has to be dealt with.
Absolutely.
And this is, what I'm here to share with the good sister Neff today.
Yeah, you touched on so many significant things. So, one, in terms of the poetry, I thought that was very significant because art is very healing. One, I'm a healing artist. I don't think I said that in my introduction, but I do feel like that's an important thing to say because I'm a poet, I'm a writer, I'm a singer, a songwriter. And I think that that's a very important aspect of healing, specifically my personal healing journey. So what we're going to talk about, we're going to go peel back a couple of layers of the different levels of healing because we're talking about interdimensional healing. And what I mean by that is simply the multiple dimensions of healing. So we're talking about the personal healing, right? You talked about the health, the fitness, the nutrition. And it's very I'm thankful that you shared transparently what the stage that the world was in during that period, right? Because there wasn't so much consciousness around that. There was an expansion of political consciousness, which was very important. And it's interesting because right now there's an expansion of spiritual consciousness, but it's almost as if some people are throwing out the proverbial baby with the bathwater when it comes to the politics and the other elements, as if both can't exist. And it's very important for us as African people to remember that our legacy the African worldview is holistic, right? In episode 2, we did pillar 1, which is Ma'at. Episode 3, we did pillar 2, which is, nature, Neter. And then today we're doing pillar 3, which is healing. So we build on that foundation, and those pillars, the order of the pillars is very significant because Ma'at is key for us to recognize that holistic thinking, right? That synthesizing, that's an African-centered perspective that is beyond theological and moral. It's a political world. It's literally an aspect of our existence. We're talking about cosmic order. And it's holistic. It's both and, not either or, right? The antithesis to that is the either or, right? The division consciousness. But also within the scope of healing, it's important for us to recognize in eternity, right? Because as African people, that's our freedom. Our true liberation is in us recognizing that we are free in the soul, and the soul is whole. Yet we have to deal with the fragmented reality of this material experience that we have in this realm when we incarnate. Because when I say that we're cosmic beings ancestrally, right? This is even beyond Kemet, because we have to remember that Kemet was a golden age. So it took many millennia to rise up to that period to have that golden age, just like it took many years of decline for us to get into this degenerate stage that we're in right now as humanity. So for I'll say millions of years, Africans have been connecting with the fact that we're transmitting from the cosmos, right? So even the idea of extraterrestrials and aliens and all these things that are now coming out now as propaganda tools, as manipulation tools to further fragment people and make them look outside of themselves, we have to remember and reclaim our cosmic identity. And that is that we're whole in our soul. But we're here, we incarnated. Our experience here as spiritual beings, having a physical experience, is to grow and to cultivate our spirits. And our spirits are eternal, and our spirits are in a continuum. They didn't just arrive, right? We're literally star stuff. Like the iron that's pumping in our hearts is the same iron that was at the beginning of the existence of the universe. In the scientific, even in material reductionist science, proves that it's in our hearts, right? And that's what Ma'at is, right? It's the weighing of the heart, returning to the heart center. And that's where the courage is. So I wanted to touch on the fact that the reason why it takes courage to heal is because right now, first of all, you always talk about how we're in a death culture. And the fact that we're in a death culture is very significant, because obviously anything that is life affirming is going to be in resistance to death. But also in the wholeness of it, we have to recognize that death has a purpose. It's not really, we acknowledge there isn't really death. That's why we still honor our ancestors, because we recognize that in eternity, the spirit continues. And in the soul, everything is one. Right? So it's an interesting experience, and it's something that it takes a certain level of awakening, a certain level of healing to even arrive at that, right? Because when we're operating in such density, which is kind of what you were expressing, like at that point there was so much more density, and literally what people have to really connect with is our planet is moving through our solar system, which is moving through our galaxy, which is moving through our supercluster of thousands and thousands of galaxies, moving through our universe, which is moving through the multiverse, right? There's constant movement. And that means we're expanding and contracting, and we're going through cycles. So the capacity of humanity right now has expanded and stretched far beyond where it was 55 years ago. So we have more of a responsibility now because we also have more freedom. And that's where Ma'at is very important, because you always have the other side of the coin, right? The other side of the scale. If you have death, you have life. If you have order, in order to have Ma'at, you have to have chaos, right? So chaos makes it necessary for order. And that's essentially the realm that we enter into in this existence, is the realm of the polarities, right? And all throughout the universe, you have expressions of polarity. So we talked about that in the Balance of the Sexes episode. So I'm not going to go too deep into that. I wanted to connect us to that right there, because realizing that that's the antithesis, realizing that that's the polarity to the culture that we're in right now, that is the mainstream, then that countercurrent that's going against the mainstream is going to be one that requires courage, because everything's going to push against you. That's why it's so hard for people to talk about certain things, because they're going to get canceled because it's not politically correct, right? Or why you're being censored, and why you're not teaching to mass audiences with the PhD that you have and the qualifications that you have to speak on literally the Black Panther Party, at the very least, never mind all the other knowledge that you have, right? It's because of that. So it takes courage for us to heal. It's also why the smoking, all the other drugs, even the plant medicine is being abused right now to the degree of escape. The devices are being used for escape, right? Because when we confront reality and we confront the fact that we need healing and that we're in the state of decay, and I say we because I'm talking about the collective. We're in an ecosystem, everything's connected. That's really the truth of wholeness. So we still have to honor that part, is that like I can heal as much as I want to heal personally, but if we don't all heal, it's like I'm just a grain of sand on the beach. I'm a drop of water in the ocean. So I have to be equally invested. That's why Harriet Tubman didn't just leave the plantation and never came back. Harriet Tubman was like, nah, fuck that. We got to go back. We're going to get some more people out. And that's collective accountability. That's collective responsibility. And that's what I'm talking about when I say that we, because I recognize that a lot of the we's that I say don't really apply to me, because that's not how I'm choosing to live my life, right? But that's because I have the courage to heal. And a lot of that for me started with that personal healing, because for me, I had to deal with, and this is what we all have to deal with, the personal traumas and experiences that we had on a personal level that we need to heal. So we're talking of, and these are things that we're also recycling as well, but they affect us personally. So we are also going to talk about generational trauma. We're going to talk about not trauma, but just generational healing. We're also going to talk about ancestral healing and, all the different dimensions. Yet I want to start on that personal level, because there's an aspect of the things that we recycle, even though it might be like, for example, the incest. Incest and molestation is a byproduct and a recycling of the trauma that we experienced during the Ma'afa, right? During that enslavement period, where you literally have family, daughter and father, mother and son being bred together to create more people for them to enslave. So it's very important for us to recognize that even though those things, like if a woman is raped by her father, that's something she experiences personally, but it's still also ancestral trauma because it's being recycled. But you have to heal from that on a personal level, but also we have to heal from that on an ancestral level, which collectively we're all responsible for, even if we don't personally experience that trauma. But on a personal level, that's what we're responsible for. That's also including, as you said, the health and nutrition, our physical bodies, right? Coming into that self-love, that's something we have to heal. Coming back into our humanity as well. But that, I would say that's more so on the ancestral healing note. But for me personally, with my experiences that I had, healing from my grandfather's murder. So we experienced a lot of violence that we normalize. And that's not how we as beings are necessarily meant to experience the world. We're not meant to experience death, and just those types of things are very traumatizing to the central nervous system. It's literally physiologically affecting us, and it's also affecting us emotionally, psycho-spiritually. So for me, my grandfather was murdered in front of me when I was 4 years old. So witnessing like literally gun violence and just the murder of one of the people that raised me, that was close to my heart, right? Having to heal from that trauma, healing from being molested as a child as well, was also a very painful, traumatic experience. And a lot of us, we don't necessarily see directly how those experiences reflect in our behavior directly, because sometimes when you're in it, you're so in it that you can't see it. And it takes some distancing, some emotional distancing. And my nature is just as such, where I'm not as emotionally attached. But at an early part of my journey, I'll say about 9 years ago, I was very emotionally unstable because I hadn't embraced or confronted, right? It starts with the confrontation, and then you get to the embrace. Those experiences that I had. I've also gone through abortions. That's very traumatizing experience to heal from. Reconnecting with the womb, healing our connection to our self-value. All of those different things are things that I experienced. But for me, it really manifested through my voice and an inability to actually express myself. Because even when I was molested, I didn't talk about it until I was 23 years old, right? So I wanted to connect that to the art, because art is one of the fundamental ways that I heal myself, but also heal others. And I remember I shared with you this poem, but I actually want to share this poem with people here, because also I've noticed there's a huge conversation going on right now about hip hop. And because there was like the 50th anniversary of hip hop, which I don't know what the date they're using for that is, but it's interesting because our art is a cultural weapon for our healing, but it's also being weaponized against us for our destruction right now in the way that it's being wielded. But this piece in particular, this was the first time that I used my spoken word and actually healed my voice, to the point, because I used to have this knot in my throat where I really couldn't express what was really in my spirit. And I remember Abiodun, who's an elder from the Last Poets. The reason why I'm bringing this up in relation to hip hop, because I see true hip hop, the origins of hip hop is really, I would take it back to the Last Poets, because they were speaking the spoken word to rhythm over a beat first. And that's what the essence of hip hop is. And not to mention, it's already a continuum that's coming from an ancient art and practice. You think we wasn't spitting over beats and drums and music? Come on, like, we've been doing this. But I wanted to acknowledge the Last Poets because they did a lot of revolutionary work, and a lot of that movement, that Black Power movement that you were actually alive and a part of and woven into, there was music in there. Like, you know, when you look at John Coltrane and jazz, and like, they all of that was political activism. And now the music is like, oh, you'd be lucky if a musician or an artist, a rapper says anything about something political. And it's probably going to be on some Black Lives Matter shit. It's not going to be, there's definitely not going to be anything revolutionary. So I think that that's very, very significant. But I remember going to Abiodun, always has these, I don't know if he's still doing it, but in Harlem, he would have these open house sessions where you're talking about the OGs, like original hip hop OGs, and you stand there in front of them, and you perform, and they give you, you know, their feedback uncut. So people will go and they will share poems or share their music. And I remember one time I was there, and I was going through this healing with my voice. So I remember one time I had gone and I just read something from one of my journals. And this was something about my molestation experience. It was just a poem I had wrote, one of the first things, but it was important. It was a part of my healing process, right? Because every time that I used my voice and that I shared my story, I felt the healing. And the reason why I want to share this with people is because it's very important on a spiritual note to recognize that the density, or what people call demons, or negativity, negative thought forms, all of those things have access to you through the portal of your trauma. So all those things you have in the dark, in your shadow, that's unhealed, that you don't want to deal with, that you're avoiding and running away from, that's how you get tapped. That's how you get possessed. That's how you end up recycling that trauma again and again and again. And then it's more things to heal. And it gets more access to you, and it can take over more of you. That's why usually when people drink or smoke or just start wilding out, it's like some people even black out. They don't even remember, because like you're literally not even in possession of your vessel. So on a spiritual note, I think it's very important for us to recognize what we're dealing with as far as that's concerned. Because when we're talking about healing, we're talking about spiritual battles. We're talking about spiritual warfare. That's what I see when I say spiritual warfare. It happens on multiple dimensions, but the inner battle is what is reflected outside. So what is happening inside of you is also the type of relationships you're going to attract, and then the spiritual battles you have within relationships. So I remember sharing, and every time I shared, it was shine a light on it. And it was like, I remember the light that was shined on it the moment I shined a light on it, when I accepted, and I was like, oh, I was molested. I never even wanted to use that word. And then I remember the first time I had said it out loud to someone. And then I remember, and I needed my elder to actually, because I remember there was a moment where my partner at the time, I had told him, like, I had threatened to jump out the window. And regardless if I would have really done it or not, even just making the threat, whether it was for attention or not, obviously we can acknowledge that's not a healthy state to be in. Okay. So I remember he took us to our elder, Baba Heru, and we sat with Baba Heru, and Baba was like, you got some deep things that you may need to like confront, that are trying to come up, that you need to heal and deal with. And that was when I first started dealing with my grandfather's murder, and acknowledging that his spirit was constantly trying to speak to me and connect with me. And I remember just having this epiphany. But all of this was happening through the process of me starting to go to open mics, going to the New Eurekans Poet Cafe, starting to share my poems. And at the time, I had to use my notebook. And I remember the first piece that I shared, where is it? It was actually in this journal right here. And I went up there and I did my piece, and it was just like floodgates from there, the healing, because people would come up to me, and I realized, oh, wow, this is way more common than I thought. Because then you start to realize these things that we think are taboo, so many of us are going through these things and experiencing them. And that's what I realized. People would come up to me even and tell me how they perpetrated molestation on other people, or rape, or whatever it may be. And it was and I was like, whoa, this is powerful. Like, to the point where at one point I was just like, whoa, this is a lot. Like, I don't know if I can handle all this, because so much was coming from it. And I realized I wasn't just healing myself every time that I spoke publicly and shared my voice. It was healing so many other people. And that's what happens when we tell our story. But we have to go through that process of healing, and we have to have the courage to do that, because sometimes we're afraid to say I was molested, or we're afraid to say whatever the thing was that we did, especially when we feel guilt and shame. But these are the things that we have to begin to shine a light on, and recognize that we can transform, because we have ancestral symbols and concepts and models for healing, like Kepra, right? We have in Tehuti Ma'at Academy, the Kepra Challenge. It's a 28-day healing challenge. And it's all plant-based, because it's focused on purification, cleansing the body. But the symbol of Kepra, the dung beetle, is all about transformation, because the dung beetle lays its eggs inside a ball of animal feces, animal waste, and rolls it into a perfect sphere, following the celestial cues from the sun. And in 28 days, which is a lunar cycle, it's the same amount of time of a pretty regular menstrual cycle and other cycles in nature. That 28-day period, it will hatch, and new life comes from that animal waste, right? Showing how we can transform waste into value. Or even when we look at manure and compost, all of these are ways of nature to show us how from waste we can create value and we can fuel ourselves. You know, it's the power of the soil, of the darkness of the soil, right? The fertility of the soil. The more fertile the soil is, right? The more compost you have in there, the more manure you have in there, the darker the soil is, the more fertile it is. So we have so many models in nature to look at. And that 28-day period is also very significant because I think they say scientifically it's 25 days, but obviously within a moon cycle, within 28 days, if within 25 days you can rewrite neurological pathways, you can break bad habits, you can formulate new habits. So we have a lot of different models and things for healing. So I've mentioned Abiodun because I want to share this poem, because I remember when I was there, him and Brother Africanus, who was another elder that were there, they were talking about that song, Freddie's Dead. And they were like, somebody needs to write Freddie Ain't Dead. And I took that so seriously. I didn't even realize how seriously I took it until I realized that I had written it. Because at the time, I was still healing my voice. So I wasn't fully in this space of like power and authority with my voice. But I remember one day going back into my notes on my phone and I was like, oh shit. And I read it out to my partner at the time and he was just like, yo, you wrote Freddie Ain't Dead. What was that, Mama Regina?
Your partner? Your business partner? Who?
Yes.
Was it your man?
He was my
Was
man,
he
yes.
your special
He's also
significant
my
other?
business partner.
Okay.
He's also my business partner. He's the father of Tehuti Ma'at, so he's the co-founder of Tehuti Ma'at as well. But we're no longer
I understand.
life partners. Right?
You know what I'm playing on. You know what I'm playing
on. So yeah, and I remember he said to me, he was like, yo, you wrote Freddie Ain't Dead. And I was like, oh shit, like here it is. So I want to share it with y'all. And I added this vocal element to it as well that I'm going to share with it, because one day when I was here, and this is also deeply connected to my healing process. When I was here one day, I heard a gunshot. And we usually don't hear gunshots here. And I didn't even realize how much I had not heard gunshots until that moment when I heard the gunshot, because I had already been here for 3 years. And, you know,
when you say here, what do you mean? When you say here, what do you mean?
When I say here, I mean I was in here in Cabo Verde. So the island that I'm on is a small volcanic island. It's just isolated, right? So I didn't realize, because I was in New York City for 9 years, constantly hearing gunshots and sirens in Brooklyn, that, oh shit, I hadn't heard a gunshot and I don't know how long, 3 years. I heard a gunshot, but what it did to me was like, it made my heart beat in that way. And I was just like, and I came back to the healing that I did around my grandfather's murder, because he was killed in front of a sawed-off shotgun. He was killed by a sawed-off shotgun. So that gunshot sound, it triggered something in me. So I created this singing element to the beginning of what was Freddie Ain't Dead, just the piece, the poetry piece. So this is significant because it connects full circle to the element of the song, because it's now Freddie Ain't Dead, but it's also, can we heal instead? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and share it. Let me actually go like this. Gunshots in my head. Gunshots in my head. Can we heal instead? Can we build instead? Can we live instead? My people are dying. They ain't even trying. Can we heal instead? Gunshots in my head. But Freddie ain't dead. Cover-ups, Giuliani, Nixon, Hoover, sick fucks, Obama, Hillary, Trump, setups, wake up, Asada, Huey, Malcolm tried to free us, living in total devastation, full of lies disguised as truth, blinded by the enemy from seeing our deprivation. Broken spine, no treatment. How Freddie go out like that? So many lives taken. This shit's all a trap. Freddie made sure we knew his name. Freddie put in work after the case. Freddie is alive every time we say his name. Freddie's more alive than we are. Word to Sheikh and to Diop. Every day a new case. Lives lost in vain. We hear Sandra Bland desensitized, as if these killed aren't human lives. Insulting allegations of suicide. American injustice, full of lies. Nothing but distractions televised. Sister found truth and was speaking it, enlightening the youth, ended up on a noose. No coincidence. My sister, anger fills my heart because I'm just like you. My soul seeks to scream out the truth, liberate our minds, take us back to our roots, stop the self-destruction. If you know the truth, heal me, feel me, alchemy, transform this emotion into something to set us all free. Sandra Bland's story we can't bear. Murder by the feds, our worst nightmare, true terror. What I look like frightened by Al-Qaeda when this is the regime terrorizing me. This the same regime funding the extreme. I feel her pain. I'm stepping in the lane to defend my sister's honor, take a message to fame. Cause I know a lynching when I see one. Wake up. Fate sealed whether we bow or run. The goal is still eugenic, to kill every last one of us like Rockefeller intended. Sandra Bland freed my soul, no choice but to take control. Cause I remember at only 4 years old, witnessing an act so bold. Courage in front of a sawed-off shotty, that blast that dropped the body, the barrel that spit the bullets that took his life. Staring at death, no fear in Papa's eyes. So let these pigs fuck with me. My protection's in a realm unseen. It's the return of the Kemetic queen. I know the fate I sealed when I chose to step out this Patrix. Destiny's written in the stars. Get your fix. So many spiritual paths. Take your pick. And I know we hate to hear it, but how could we believe Black Lives Matter when we're killing ourselves, killing each other for them? No, Freddie ain't dead. Don't you see? Life is eternal. You're accountable for every deed, every word you ever spoke, every word planted a seed. No, you don't have to be saved. You don't have to die before you can live. You're allowed to take. You don't have to just give. And I ain't trying to clown. They had me fooled too, waiting on the return of Jesus. My nigga, Christ is in you. Christ is Heru. Heru, bastardized and twisted. The devil is the scapegoat. We all on the same boat. Gravity grounds us all. The darkness we call Set, it's merely here to balance you. See? Evil has a purpose too. That's why we hear that 9/11 shit. ISIS, me and my people with any kind of consciousness is screaming, we don't believe you. The only thing I'm ready to go to war for is my people. No, Freddie ain't dead. Freddie Gray? Nah, he's alive. And he inspired these rhymes. Gunshots in my head. Gunshots in my head. Gunshots in my head. Can we heal instead? Can we live instead? Can we build instead? Can we heal instead? Ashe. You think? So I wanted to share that as an expression of healing. I know the power of vibration, and the story as well is all a testament of a multidimensional healing process, because that's also healing the ancestral line as well, but also the generational line, which is all the programming and the conditioning, and all the work I had to do, even around my own hair. Like when I had to shave off all my hair, and then I started growing my afro, and I'm looking in the mirror, I'm like, oh, I look ugly. And even my mother's like, oh, you look better with the perm, right? It's like all of these are things that require serious healing, and it might seem light to a lot of people, but it's so much work for us to just love ourselves. I'm telling you, in a world where we're constantly being bombarded with subconscious and conscious direct programming that's telling us that you're not worth anything and you're not valuable. No, you are valuable. You're important. What you say matters. You matter. Your existence is enough. That's what we need to remember. And for me, it's something I get so passionate about because we're killing ourselves. We don't even love ourselves enough to eat right. We don't even love ourselves enough to make the sacrifices that we need to make for our own lives. And this is the gift. This is what we came here for. So I get very passionate about healing. And I know that it's not easy. And that's why I chose the title, It Takes Courage to Heal, because it's not easy. You know, I went through a lot of pain to get to this point of expression, you know, to be here and wield my voice with power. Took a lot of pain, not to just think about it, to feel it, to process it, to really go through it. But even beyond my pain as a high priestess, channeling other people's pain and really doing a lot of work of service to really heal our collective spirit. We have a lot of pain. There's so much suffering on this planet, whether we're looking at all the levels of dysfunction, you know, the poison that they're calling foods, the literal environments that we find ourselves in that are disgusting and completely disconnected. We're just our collective spirit is very much in need of healing. So I know I've said a lot, Mama Regina. So I want to give you a chance to respond or even add anything because you've shared your story about your healing journey and your experience. Um, and anything that you feel adds to, you know, support and encourage people, right? Emphasis on encourage people to go through the process and to have the courage to heal, because what comes from that healing, like this comes from healing. This is true. This is not an act. This is not a facade. This is not a persona despite what you may think. It's healing for you to be authentically who you are. You got to wash all those stains off.
Well, a couple things I want to add to what you shared, which is so beautiful because you've hit other people who will be listening to this who have not talked about their trauma. That's very significant. You found this out when you did an open mic and people came up to you. I know what that feels like as well. And what I want to say too about healing is this. We have political prisoners in jail, and they are in jail because they loved you so much. On Sunday, I saw Sundiata Acoli. I think Brother Love did about 70 years in jail. He had been with the good sister Asada. Everybody didn't make it out. So it was good to see Sundiata. So I want to say to those of you who are listening, healing is also giving. Go to the Jericho movement. Pick a political prisoner. You could pick Brother Siddiqui. Write him. That was Asada's significant other. And the police wanted him to talk on her, to give statements on her, to give directions to where she is. And he refused. And they put Brother Love in jail. He didn't commit any crime, so-called crime. But Brother Siddiqui is behind bars as I speak. And let us not even talk about Jalil Amin, the imam now. He used to be H. Rap Brown. Read his books. His ones from the 60s or 70s, it's called Die Nigga Die. That's a gem. But his latest book is about
Interesting. That's
Islam
the
and
name of
his
the book?
transformation. Excuse me?
That's the
What
name
did
of
you
the
say?
book?
Yeah, Die Nigga Die. That's his
That's
first book.
interesting. You know, the last poets have a poem called Die Nigga Die. Look that up
And
too, for those watching. You could find
that's
that
where
on
they got it
YouTube.
from. The late poets celebrated the revolutionaries of our time. H. Rap Brown was, anyway, he is an imam now. Jalil Amin, let me give respect. Okay, assalamu alaikum, my brother. And look, he's in lockdown. He's in lockdown. I know I'm crazy. Brother Love is in lockdown. Write him. Write him. And I'm gonna talk straight now to the sisters. Because over the years, I have found that most of the women who write to our political prisoners, make videos for our political prisoners, are white. Now I understand that Black women are under a lot of trauma. I am too. All right? But I've discovered this, and I'm not hating on those white women who give some of our political prisoners, before they die, they make videos or write landscapes of their dreams. And I'm really thinking of the Panther brother, Herman Wallace. Herman
He
Wallace
was one of
had
the Angola 3.
that's him, that's him. Now, I won't get to the bad part first. Anyway, he was talking out his dreams to this artist, a young white woman. I'm blanking on her name. I think it's Justine, something like that. But don't hold me to that. This is the point. Herman told her that, man, when I get out of prison, I want a big house and a swimming pool shaped like a panther. Well, she wrote it out for him. That, you can't imagine how much that enlightened his burden of being in prison. And when they finally let him out of prison, I did get a chance to talk with him, but he died within 2 days. But he had good memories of that wonderful woman who took the time to write to him, to listen to his dreams. And then she created a whole exhibit called Herman's House and took it around the country. Bless her heart. So I'm speaking to, in particular, the sisters here. You know why? Because Albert Woodfox, all right, also a part
I
of
got
that.
to meet Albert Woodfox.
Yes. Okay. When Albert was in Philly, somebody asked him in an interview, well, with all them years that you spent in solitary confinement, what did you think about? You know what he said? Women. I thought about women. Women. What? Sisters. Part of your healing is giving. You write to these brothers. Put a piece of
I'm
your
so glad
scent
you're saying
on the letter. I just get good with the brothers. I mean, he's already in jail. I mean, what the heck? You know? Be friends. Let them know that they're not alone. Let them know that you appreciate their story, their legacy, their life living for you. Because this is what it meant to be a Panthers. We didn't just live for ourselves. We lived for Black people, and we lived for the
yes,
future that we knew was coming. And let me even just tell you this, in the party, like when I was in the party, I didn't have any children. There were sisters in the party who did have children. Well, what do you think we did sometimes? We babysat to let those sisters be free, to go to the rallies, right? To go to the political education classes, or just to be free from raising your children, especially if you didn't have a husband. We did that exchange of giving and receiving, giving and receiving, giving and receiving. And this is how, you must live. Don't think that you're an individual. Don't. especially if you're carrying around trauma. And you are. If you be Black, you are. Even if you be other races. In America, I'm sure you have some level of trauma. But Black people have absolutely deep, deep dungeons of trauma because we were in bondage for centuries by very demonic people, very demonic laws. All right. So you want to free that as best you can through healing modalities that are here for you. And I'm going to follow Sister Neff's lead. I'm going to read a poem. Yes, I am. And
Yes.
it relates to the courage that she talked about earlier because healing takes courage. Absolutely. And in one of my most courageous moments, this is a poem from Panther Poems, Poetry of a Sister Panther, where I write about my Panther experience in poetry. And being a Panther, one of the things that I've already mentioned repeatedly, and I'll keep on repeating it, we were taught to love you and all of your foolishness and all of your craziness. We were taught to love our people. So we were taught, especially by Huey, because he wrote Revolutionary Suicide, like you commit revolutionary suicide because you're only going to live for the people. So you're going to commit suicide, if you will, on your individual self. And one of the things that we learned in the party that we had to do to show Black people real revolution is that if the police shot into our office, we had to shoot back. This is what we wanted to show the people, that we had a right to self-defense. Now, if they shot in, we had to shoot back. And one night, we actually experienced this, and I'm glad it turned out the way that it did so that I could be with you all tonight to share in this wonderful program. But this is a poem where I want the audience to say a line with me. And the line is very easy. It's just so much. Can I hear you say that, Sister Neff?
So much.
That's right. And you say so much. Now I'm going to
So
point.
much.
There it is. There it is. Now when I point to the screen, that's when I want you to say so much. All right. This is called Pigs Coming. Get ready. Now what had happened? My captain got word that the pigs were coming. So all of the soldiers within the office, we had to take our place. We knew where to go, and we had to get our weapons. All right. And so I called this poem, Pigs Coming, Get Ready. I looked at no one, my weapon only, making sure it was ready, steady, praying the pigs did not shoot in, because we had to shoot back if they shot in. The party mandate so much.
So much.
Then I looked at everyone and windows smiled, slightly shaking, swaying, a rattle of death or jail. So much.
So much.
Grandmom's soup sipped my memory, deepening my smile. Non-stop beating heart, time pumped, my heartbeat saying we would show the people how much we love them. So much.
So much.
We would let no more pigs hurt them. So much.
So
We would
much.
mirror our makers. So much.
So much.
Give pigs consequences.
So
So
much.
much. For centuries of murder.
So
So much.
much.
For centuries of murder. So
So
much.
much.
With weapon in my hand. So
So
much.
much.
with weapons in panther hands. So
So much.
much. My safety almost off. So
So
much.
much.
Willingness wider. So
So
much. Wider than Oakland. So much.
so much.
Wider than Frisco. So
So
much. Wider than Berkeley. So
so
much.
much.
Wider than Philly.
So much.
Wider than this world.
So much.
Wider than our lives.
So much.
Our willingness to die.
So much.
Our willingness to die.
So much.
Our willingness to die.
So much.
To die for our love.
So much.
Our love for Black people.
So much.
Our love for Black people.
So much.
Our love for Black people.
So much.
Now, the happy ending is that the pigs just drove on by. But while they were coming down the street, I was like, I went right to my grandmother. I was raised by my grandmother. I went right there. She's still with me today in the ancestral realm. And I did not know whether I was going to, or whether we were going to make it through, because our weapons were in our hands. Okay. My safety was just about off. All right. If they had done what they had done to other people, it would have been a shootout in Oakland, California. It didn't happen. They just did that to taunt us. But that reminded me of what Neff was talking about earlier with the courageous heart. Because all of us in that room or rooms, we knew what the stakes were. And they were willing to, all right, put their lives on the line because we love Black people so much, you see. And it is this kind of love and unity that we need now, today, no question. It needs to be spread however it can be spread. And you know, I'm a even share this with you, Neff, because this is particular to me and other sisters in the party. Many of us sisters in the party went all the way through academe to get a PhD so that we could teach on a college level, because we wanted to make sure we were getting our message out to young people. And you would be surprised at the Black chairs of departments who would not hire us. And we'd be listening because they on YouTube. Many of them are famous. And none of them MFs would hire me. I got a sister teaching in China. China. Because Black people here will not give her a gig. And I've already told you about my good sister Rosemary Neely. She's teaching in Cuba. So, like I said, I be seeing these profs, these chairs of departments,
Yeah.
Black departments, who refuse. Neff talked about some of the craziness today. Why do you think that exists? They isolated us. They made sure that we didn't get even a modicum of power where we could be before audiences regularly in the fall and in the spring. Those of you who go to college, you know what I'm talking about. Those of you who don't even go high schools, when school starts, okay, in the spring, it ends. They have deliberately made sure that some of your best and brightest are either in lockdown or unemployed. So I'm saying to you, my sisters and brothers, because those of you who are listening to the sound of my voice, even if you are not in a position of any kind of Black power, I know you know people who are, and I am telling you that some of those people that you worship today, if I threw out the names, which I'm not going to do, but I want you to think about
Feel
all the
free if you
people
want
that
to.
you know, all the people that you know in academia that are on YouTube. They got shows and they don't hire Panthers. They don't hire Panther sisters. You dig? So
I think
I'm saying
I'm
that to
not gonna make
say,
you say nobody's name, but I do
right.
think we need to know the names. Because
All you
I
have
mean,
to do, all you have to do, all you have to do is just look over some of the people that you think are really, doing worthy things for Black people. Just look them over.
but that
Look
and
over
that's also
chairs of
goes back
department.
to what it goes
Go
back to
ahead.
what we were talking about before. We have to be educated, we have to have discernment, and we really need to know what our interests are. It's not an outfit, it's not a look, it's not an
Yep.
aesthetic. It's what do we actually need? There's a lot of people talking real sounds good, sounds
Mm-hmm.
great. A lot of people doing things, opening things up. Are they institutions that we need to
Mm-hmm.
not be dependent on the current institutions we need for survival? Are
Mm-hmm.
are they food institutions? Are they clothing institutions? Are they actual manufacturing? Like is it production? Is it um security? Is it energy, water? I think those are the things we have to go back to the fundamentals. And I think we've touched on this throughout the series and we'll continue to touch on it. What is actually
Yes.
revolutionary? And again, that's why we like to
Oh,
bring
and
people
let me
into
let me
things.
get this in. Let me get this in. Let me get this in too, Neff, because I think people will really love this. I always hear Huey Newton's name bandied around, which is good. You know, do you think anybody hired Huey Newton when he got out of jail? Huh? Huh? Do you think anybody hired Bobby Seale when he got out of jail? These brothers had families, and even
No,
if
because
they
they were
didn't,
scary. It was
so
scary. And
yes, but what the Panthers did was to pave the way so that brothers could and sisters could get into power. And then you turn and look the other way when you could be helpful. Is that
but
being
that's because we
courageous?
didn't recognize what real power was. We didn't
No, that
recognize.
is because they were scared and didn't want to take a chance. They recognized power. They stood on top of the Black Panther Party, got into positions of power, and then did not look back at the foundation that allowed them to get the power that they have today, or
I
even
think.
back then.
Sorry, it got cut out on my end. Can you hear me, Mama Regina?
Yeah.
Okay, it just cut out on my end. I think it's very important that again we look at the both and, right? Because yes, we can make certain moves within the system as it stands, within the institutions as they stand, because it will help the conditions currently in transition. I'm a revolutionary in the sense that I'm looking at like, you know, complete like overthrow. Like I'm saying, like we change the whole thing. We create our own institutions. Tehuti Ma'at is about creating cooperative institutions in the areas of healing, art, and education so that we create the fundamental institutions that we need for our survival and for our thriving. Because at this point, the model we have to move into is yes, it's beautiful to be willing to die for the people. But in this moment, because it is about death, we have to be willing to live for the people. We have to be
Yes.
willing to
Yes.
heal,
That's
heal for
hold
the
tight.
people.
Hold tight on that, Neff, because I have to say this because people have said that to me too. You know, you want to die. I didn't want to. We didn't want to die. We wanted to carry out Malcolm X's mandate about what revolution is. We knew we would have to sacrifice our love for Black people. We knew we would have to put our life on the line like any warrior or any soldier. I'm glad I'm still here. I never went to jail, and that's good. But I do want to just emphasize, when we saw our leaders who had given so much be out in the so-called world, and there were Black people with power, they could have even done it silently, who refused to reach back. I have to speak on that for the memory of a Huey, and for all the and Bunchy Carter. My Lord, I know y'all don't know Bunchy. Please read my book, Poetry in the Black Panther Party. He was one of the best. I'm not gonna go into
Yeah.
his story, but I just want y'all to know we weren't playing. We weren't playing. This was so when you have people who are willing to go the distance for you, like a Malcolm X, like a Martin Luther King, okay, and understand that both of these leaders, you didn't see the Black hands behind Martin Luther King's killing, but there were Black people who helped him be killed. People, and that Malcolm was killed with the hands of Black people. Now, am I saying the government
Mhm.
wasn't involved? No, they were. But it is bad that they had willing participants who would murder that genius of a man. So I'm just saying, when our heroes came out of jail and couldn't economically take care of their families, that's a travesty. Okay? And I want y'all to recognize that. Asada got a child or two. Okay? They are not in Cuba with her. Are you looking
Yes.
to help that family? So I just want you to be thinking about recent heroes, because it's easy, well, not easy, but we religiously celebrate Harriet, which we should, okay? But you got some recent heroes and heroines that really need to be supported, and often people don't even think about them. When I think about my sister who's teaching English in fucking China because she can, and I'm not talking about just a unskilled person. She can't get a
Okay.
job in America and she be Black. No, that's unacceptable. So I just want our audience to hear what I have to say, because you wouldn't know these things. It's only like a small group of us who really know these things and have experienced these things. And I want y'all, to know what's really going down with some of your
Yeah.
greatest leaders.
Yes, that's why it's really important for us to bring people into the militia, right? The Tehuti Ma'at militia is a organized force, really, of service. And the educational piece is very, very important for us. So for people to actually be able to get more access to this information, to go through the workshops, the classes, the courses, all of that is very important, not only politically, culturally, and also economically, to be aware of and be able to have that full synthesis. Um, Also, in addition to what you said, what I want to preface with what I say to honor what you said, because it's fully received, right? Because I keep saying it, we stand on the shoulders of giants, as we always say,
Yes,
right?
you
So we
do.
speak on that. And when we honor the ancestors, and when this work is being guided by a board of ancestors of 22 warrior ancestor spirits, or I'll say 24, um, it's because that we recognize the blood that was shed in order for us to be here right now. It's very important, though, for us to be here right now and recognize what the fight is of this moment right now. It has revolved, which means it has spiraled, it has continued. We're not in the same place that we were, just like the Panthers were not in the same place where Malcolm was and Martin was, right, with the civil rights movement. And they weren't in the same place that Harriet Tubman and Nat Turner were. So it's a constant revolution, right, as we're moving and the sun is moving. It's also interesting that earlier you mentioned being of service, because tomorrow, as of when this is being recorded, the sun enters into Aust. And the Aust energy, which most people know through the Greek of Virgo
I know.
is an energy signature of service and purification.
Oh,
So it's
oh,
very significant that that this message be taken, because us being of service and purifying ourselves, healing ourselves is very important, and we're being supported in that. Tehuti, which many know as Mercury, the Roman interpretation, right? So we have all these Greek and Roman interpretations. We don't know our own African origins. If you are interested in learning more about this, we have episodes, specifically the Navigating Eternity live stream series, and we even have a full-on course, the Navigating Eternity course, that goes into the ancient cosmology, right, and how to practically apply it. So subscribe, follow, and go look at some of those Navigating Eternity episodes, or you can check the links in the description as well for more information about that. But that's very significant because Mercury, or Tehuti, you mentioned earlier, we had the energy of the scribe, right? It's the energy of
that's
communication, of
right.
connection, going retrograde. So it's an optical illusion where the planet, the energy sphere of Tehuti, looks like it's moving backwards, and it's in the energy of Ast, Virgo. So the energy itself is here to support us in doing that reflective healing work, in seeing ourselves of service, seeing our collective responsibility, and all of that. So I say that to say, in this moment right now, the way the fight has revolved, we have to be willing to heal for the people. We have to be willing to live for the people. We have to be willing to build for the people. And it does begin by being willing to die for the people, because we're building on that foundation. But what is the progression of energy? Because when you're willing to die for the people, it means you're not afraid of death. That's the level of courage we have to live, right? Because it means we step into a higher level of strategy. We step into a higher level of warfare when we say we're going to be willing to live, because that's how we honor all of those who died for us. That doesn't mean some of us are going to have to die, but we have to recognize that death is a part of the cycle.
All
It's not
right.
something for us to
That's
be
right.
afraid of. There's a continuum that we're in.
That's
There's
right.
sacrifices that must be
That's right.
made. We talked about this in the
Hmm.
previous episode. Sacrifices must be made. Many sacrifices were made for us to be here. A lot of blood was shed for us to be here
That is
today.
so true.
And we're
And
shedding blood right now senselessly. So we
I'd
need to
like to,
wise up.
I'd like to even
Yes.
add to what you're saying, Sister Neff, as we
Hmm.
come to the end here.
Yeah.
I have noticed that young people, this generation, all right, I'll give you an example. Two children. One of them has a birthday. All right. So of course the parents give a birthday party and all that's good. Then they give gifts to the other child too. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Well, we don't want him to feel bad. We don't want. I'm like, where who y'all gonna have to educate me. Where these ideas come? Birthdays are special. That's when you come out of your mother's womb. That has nothing to do with your brother, your sister, your cousin. That is your day. But today's parents, because I heard this from a young couple, we don't want her brother to feel left the fuck out. It's not his birthday. Now, when it's his goddamn birthday, then you can, give him the.
The
Okay, I
censorship is
knew
going too far.
this
The
this is
coddling.
this
Like
is
what?
listen to your elders, please, y'all. I mean, don't your elders with some wisdom. Don't, because I know they got that from TV or some place that not full of wisdom. All right. So, just some of the things that youngsters, I call everybody young under 50 and under is young to me. In any event, look, some of the old traditions are good. Not all, but some are. Okay, don't like, well, I don't want to spank my child because that reminds me of slavery. I'm like, well, what if he puts his hand in the fire? I'm not saying get a strap and beat him and
It's a lot of
anyway.
coddling. I'm
Yeah, it's
glad that
and
you
this
mentioned that, because that coddling is very problematic. And just the idea of like
yes.
creating so much safety, so much cushioning. It's like we have to experience things. We can't avoid certain emotions and certain things. It's what's creating the problem to begin with. That
That's
idea of
right.
like avoiding the trigger and creating safe spaces so everyone can feel good in those spaces. Like, we have to look at both like the whole spectrum and both sides. We have other emotions that we have to feel pain, we have to feel the guilt, we have to feel the
Yes, we
shame, we
do.
have to feel the discomfort.
That's
That's
right.
part of the healing process. That's why it takes courage, because you're going to get uncomfortable
Yes,
because you're
you
trying to
are.
grow, you're shedding, you're growing, you're expanding, you're learning, and you have to apply that, and it does get uncomfortable. So it makes me think about our healing ciphers, which is a program we've been doing since about 2015, when I started doing the sacred spaces, sacred womb circles. But really, the importance of creating sacred spaces is very important for our
Yes.
healing, because they don't offer that cushioning that the safe spaces offer, where it's like you don't actually confront and deal with the discomfort. It's like, no, we actually have to,
Exactly.
yes, it's a sacred space, we come in and it's a container, yet it's not, censoring anything, because we're trusting that
Mm-hmm.
whatever comes into the space is necessary for the healing process. So we do
Mm-hmm.
that every single moon cycle, every month on the first Saturday, or the closest Saturday to the new moon. So that's also one of the things you get access to as a member of the Tehuti Ma'at militia. You get
Good.
access to the ARC, the African Rehabilitation Center. That's our private Discord server. That's our collaboration with the African War College, also known as the Amos Wilson Collective. So you do get access to that and other militia exclusive gatherings that we have virtually, our Community Connect, our Warrior Workouts, which we have one coming up this Saturday, Community Connect, and this Sunday we have our Warrior Workout. And we also have our Think Study group coming up, and we're going to be doing Amos Wilson's book, The Falsification of African Consciousness.
Oh,
So if these
good.
are things you're
Good.
interested in, I highly
Mm-hmm.
encourage you to join the militia, because you're also going to be in community with other spiritual warriors, and you're able to actually expand and connect and have that collective responsibility, but also have that space for personal healing, for accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I know that you have to go, Mama Regina.
I do, but let me just say this though, to
Any-
the audience in particular.
Mhm.
One of the reasons that I'm here with Sister Neff is because I respect her so. And the main reason that I respect, well, several, but one of the main reasons that I respect her so very, very much is that she's created independent institutions. All right. She is a Black woman of power. Okay. She's not going anywhere looking for anybody to give her a gig. She's literally created a host of jobs, a host of occupations that certainly help her, but help our people. That's why I'm here. I wouldn't be here if she wasn't such a dynamic woman. And I'm saying that to support what she is speaking about, her different programs. That's amazing to me that she has done this. So those of you who are looking for any kind of guidance and healing and discipline, because you need discipline. I mean, really look over her programs, and be a part of them, because she was wise enough to bring a beautiful, bright woman like me here to meet with you all and to share everything that I know so that you could take it and make it even better for your generation.
Give thanks, Mama Regina. I appreciate your words of support, and it's always an honor to have you here. And your words are just gems. And I really think that people will really benefit. I mean, once you come into the militia, like, it is what it is, you'll see it. Like, it's just, there's so much that it has to be held sacred in that container that we just can't
Mm-hmm.
even offer publicly, really. So, just come in, like, and we do need the support, right? We're creating cooperatives, but really we need to create an economy around healing, an economy around liberation, because that economic piece is very important to our liberation. We can't be afraid of money no more. Like, I'm not saying we got to be capitalist, but the cooperative structure allows us to transition out of capitalism into what we are creating. And the beautiful thing is we get to create whatever we want. We don't have to look at any existing models for that. So I know Mama Regina had to go, but I do want whoever is here still live, I want to cover some final things to touch on. I wanted to acknowledge Brother Wale's comment because it's impossible to remain sane in an insane asylum. I'm so glad that you said that, because one of the things that I really wanted to touch on was Dr. Frances Cress Welsing's book, The ISIS Papers, and how it speaks on our psychology and the importance of recognizing that we're in a state of insanity if we're avoiding and not dealing with or trying to change the conditions that we're in. And unfortunately, many people have adopted ideologies and delusional ideas or illusions, which create a delusional reality that doesn't deal with the reality of the conditions that we're in, that we need to be responsible and accountable to transforming and changing. And it starts with ourselves, which is why we're talking about that personal healing. Now, I talked about the personal healing, the generational healing, so the trauma, the conditioning, the programming, the ancestral healing, right? So we're talking about what's genetic and what's in our bloodline. So that's even looking at your own lineage. What did you inherit on your father's side? What did you inherit on your mother's side? And processing and healing that for your generation, for your lineage. And then we even have interdimensional trauma and interdimensional things that we need to heal through, which is the karmic aspect of Ma'at, right? Past lives, and the fact that we're in a continuum. So we're all literally inheriting whatever spiritual record we have from our previous life experience, and that's what our spirit is experiencing now in this life. So those are all aspects of healing. So the nature of this realm is to heal. There's also Sister to Sister is a video that's on the YouTube channel as well, live stream that I did with Sister Ma'at on her channel, Ma'at Speaks, but it's on our channel as well. And we talked about this because it's very important to recognize that the experience we have on this earth, on Geb, as we would call it ancestrally, is one of healing. It's one of really just cultivating the spirit. It's unique within the cosmos to come and be incarnate in this life. We came here for a reason, whether you're conscious of it or not. There's a purpose to your existence here. There's a meaning. And you came here for a reason. So that answer is inside of you, not outside of you. So that avoiding that we're doing, going outside because of our fear to go within ourselves or our fear of our own power, is something we have to really confront. And we have to have the courage to do that. We've been moving through an energy cycle with the moon in Sekhmet, or many people know as through the Greek, the Leo. All of those Navigating Eternity episodes where Danny and I talk about this will be really helpful for you. But it's been an energy that's really encouraging us to really heal our heart space and be in more authenticity and have the audacity and the courage to be true to what's in our hearts. It's very important work that's happening right now that we're being guided through by our lives in whatever unique ways that we need personally. I also want to recognize Brother Jadorian. Thank you for the love on the art that we shared. Heal for the people. Shout out to Danny. Danny is my co-host on Navigating Eternity. And also I want to say to remember that we are the people. That was a huge part of my healing as well, because there's a part of my nature that is of service, and I felt like I could never do enough. That's why there are so many programs, because I felt like there's so many problems, there's so many solutions, and I'm seeing a lot of people talking about the problems, or a lot of people not even dealing with the problems, perpetuating the problems, when they're all opportunities for us to create solutions. So I was just moving on them because I literally felt like I had to do more, like it wasn't enough. That's something I healed through. And it was necessary to birth all of these different elements that exist in our programs right now. But honestly, I had to really see myself and unapologetically allow myself to be seen within the work and not constantly take the back burner and not want it to be about me. And it's like, I went through enough healing within myself to recognize that I have to be the mouthpiece for the movement, that the vision that the divine put in my heart to birth and to bring forward. And in order to do that, I have to be full in myself, unapologetically. I have to use my voice, wield my voice, and I have to see that I am the people. I can't lose myself in service. So also recognize that. Don't fall into the Messiah complex, right? Because when we get into that Heru consciousness, right, that Christ consciousness, um, that hero space, we want to be saviors. And it's like you have to save yourself. Your only responsibility really is to save yourself and do what you're here to do. Do whatever that work is that you're here to do and contribute to. And if you're meant to be, if it's written in the stars for you, if you're a star in our constellation, then join the militia and be part of the work and the movement that we're building and the institutions that we're cultivating and building. Or if you are building your own institutions, organizations, businesses, bring them into accountability through the instrument of Tehuti Ma'at, so that you're creating something that is revolutionary and that is accountable to the movement and that is woven into the web of sovereignty that we have to create. That's the whole point of the work. I wish Mama Regina was here to see that you wrote that your daughter teaches English in Prague. On my birthday, I give presents. That's very beautiful. So today's actually my anniversary to myself. 2 years ago, I married myself. So I would also love to just give my wife a shout out because it is our anniversary today. And I want to also encourage everyone to have that level of commitment to themselves. That's going to be my call to action. Also, if you are here with us live and you have any final questions or comments or anything that you want to say, please go ahead and put it into the chat, because I'm just going to wrap up with some final thoughts. Because really we have to deal with the cure, right? As I mentioned, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing beautifully illustrated how if we want to really consider ourselves to be sane, we have to be working to change the conditions that we're in, right? We have to have personal accountability and collective responsibility simultaneously. And we can do it. We can do both. We have the capacity to do it, but we don't want to be on the front lines with broken arms and missing limbs, right? We got to heal ourselves. Our spirits need to strengthen. We need to connect more deeply with our emotional body, our spirit. We need to be more sensitive to the energy dynamics around us. We need to be more conscientious of how we're contributing to the world and connecting with others. We have to be accountable for the choices and the decisions that we're making. And we have to rise to a higher level of leadership, right? Tehuti Ma'at is built on the foundation of spiritual warriorship, which is about healed leadership and creating healed leadership support systems, because that's really what Tehuti Ma'at is. Especially with the Amos Wilson Collective, our goal is to create transformational power. So it's a network, it's a community that's supporting you in developing within community. It's very, very, very important for us to be connecting with one another and to be supported in our work and to be reflected in our healing journey and be able to go into the depths of that pain and of that space, because that's where the treasures are. Anytime you have something in the shadows, something that you're hiding, that you're not really dealing with, that thing's always going to be behind you. And you're going to be afraid of that thing coming out, or that people knowing this or seeing this side of you. So it's very important for us to be clear. For me right now, the reason why I stand in high noon, like without a shadow of a doubt within myself, my own power, my intuitive abilities, and my gifts, is because I know that anything that I've experienced and gone through, that I'm willing and that I have exposed to the light. It is under the sun. And I recognize its purpose, and it's not something that is holding anything over me. That's the freedom that I want us all to be able to feel. I want your heart to be light as a feather. That's what Ma'at is. To be light as a feather, to be in that state of morality, of sobriety, propriety. And really, only you can judge yourself. You have to weigh your own heart. You know what is in your heart. But first, you have to be willing to be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself about where you are in your journey, what you're not dealing with, what you're not saying, and have the courage to speak it out, to say it, to share it with whoever you trust around you, and trust your life. Trust yourself enough. Trust your life enough, right? To be willing and have the courage to go through the experiences. Maybe you have to take certain risks. Every time we open our hearts and trust, it's a risk, right? That vulnerability requires risk. And sometimes we get hurt and we go through pain, but that's part of the process in order for us to learn and to grow. So don't be afraid of the process. Healing is a process. And have the courage, have the heart to go there, to experience things, to relate and connect with people, and just keep your heart open while recognizing you have to have discernment. And you're going to learn everything you need to learn in order to protect yourself. Doesn't mean you're not going to feel some pain along the way. So just be willing to go through that. Speaking truth heals. Ashe. Yes, that is. And honestly, that's really the bottom line, to be honest with you. Like, that is my, like, be willing to be true. Let your whole existence radiate truth. But first, you have to be true to yourself. So, what are you hiding from yourself? That's something that you could beautifully explore in the next, 28 days. You can also feel free to join the Kepper Challenge. I believe there's a link to Tehuti Ma'at Academy in the description. I'll check. If it's not, I'll definitely add it in there. If not, let me actually just go ahead and put it on the screen so that you can see if you are interested in checking out the programs that we have there, but specifically Tehuti Ma'at. It's actually still on tma.hightopsandheels.com as well, but I am going to be changing all of that. And I also wanted to just invite people who are here to follow us on Instagram at Tehuti Ma'at for updates. Tomorrow we have our live stream for Navigating Eternity. So tune in for that live stream, 6 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, I'll see you on the other side. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us via our website. You can go to tehutimaat.org and read all the information that you can about Tehuti Ma'at. If you're interested, if it feels aligned with you, if it resonates with your soul, then this is the place for you, and we welcome you to join the militia. Other than that, I hope you have a great night. Happy healing, and we'll see you next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Power.